Welcome to a special episode of the Sports PSP podcast, the highlight of Friday nights, but today is on a Sunday night. Live. First and foremost, hope everyone enjoyed a wonderful happy Thanksgiving weekend. Hope everyone enjoyed some good food, been around friends, family, enjoyed some good football. I am your host, Sports PSP. One of our panel members, BRF Sports, will not be here today. You never know. He may come by unexpectedly for a surprise just to give his football takes and stuff, but he's always more than welcome to hop on the Sports PSP podcast. And just who is always welcome to be on the Sports PSP podcast, none other to this beautiful gentleman on the left. He is from Columbus, Georgia. He is the four-time college degree champion. He is the military man and veteran, wearing the funny hats as he normally does. He is the Al Roker of journalism. He is the young Charles Barkley. He is all that in a bag of chips. He is happy because Mama Champ is happy because the Dallas Cowboys have won 3 consecutive games, so he doesn't have to hear Mama Champ complaining about her Dallas Cowboys. And he's also happy that his pops took care of business against the Cleveland Browns today. But always a pleasure having him on the podcast. One half of his Georgia Bulldogs. And by the way, his Georgia Bulldogs took care of business as they advanced to face the Alabama Crimson Tide in the SEC Championship. Hopefully for this fella, he gets his revenge. The one and only Mama Champ's number one favorite son. The big fella, as I call him. Undisputed world champ. How you doing, big fella?
I'm good, man. Good day today. Watched a lot of football. Look, for those of you who don't know, NFL Sunday ticket is now $14 a month for the rest of the year. So I had to make sure I hop on it. I've been watching every single game on my computer screen, on my phone, on my iPad. I've watched it on my TV. I've been watching the NFL a little bit everywhere, and I got league pass. So that's a good day for sports, man. Plus, man, got to see John Cena's last PLE. It's just been a good week for sports, man. I know Survivor Series was kind of mid, but hey, just to see John Cena one last time and Liv Morgan came back, that warmed my heart up very, very much. See
Oh, it
Liv
damn
Morgan.
sure warmed your heart up real
Yes,
quick.
indeed.
That's
Yes,
why
indeed.
Dominique Mysterio is the ultimate ladies man.
Yes. Seeing Liv Morgan come back, man, that really warmed my heart. That was amazing. So yeah, I was happy to see that.
And please, also, folks, please go check out the Big Fellas podcast, the Undisputed Go podcast. He will have one tomorrow night, and he's gonna have a hell of a show with, of course, BRF Sports. And shout out to our good guy Flash as well. So please make sure you like and subscribe to Flash and BRF. Make sure you take the time to check out their content. You know, they're busy men, sports content creators. Obviously, they're fathers, great fathers. So appreciate everything that they do, man. But champ, I got to talk about this. Lane Kiffin finally going to LSU. Now, champ, I mentioned it on the pod during the report from Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger. It's now official that Lane Kiffin will be going to LSU. Here is a statement that Lane Kiffin wrote regarding the decision. After a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. I was hoping to complete a historic 6-season run with this year's team by leading Ole Miss through the playoffs, capitalizing on the team's incredible success and their commitment to finish strong, and investing everything into a playoff run with guard drails in place to protect the program in any areas of concern. My request to do so was denied by Keith Carter, for those who may not know, is the athletic director of Ole Miss, despite the team also asking him to allow me to keep coaching them so they could better maintain their level of performance. Unfortunately, that means Friday's Egg Bowl game was my last game coaching the Rebels. While I am looking forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU, I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss and will be rooting hard for the team to complete their mission and bring a national championship to Oxford. Now, the reason why he released that statement, according to Lane Kiffin, the athletic director, Keith Carter, refused to allow him to coach the rest of the college playoffs while Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. It's been reported, champ, that most of his offensive staff will be leaving to go to LSU as well. One of the players from Ole Miss, Caleb Odom, had a problem because, according to him, Lane Kiffin did not tell the players that he was leaving. This is a tweet from Caleb Odom. Couldn't even come face to face with your players and tell them yourself. So, champ, look, am I surprised that Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss to go to LSU? No, I'm not shocked. And also, shout out to our good guy, Brandon from the block. Please go follow him on his podcast, his Monday podcast. He's got a lot to talk about.
Yes.
But man, Lane Kiffin, I'm not surprised, champ, that he left Ole Miss for LSU. I just don't like the timing of it because Ole Miss still has a chance to go and compete for the college football playoffs, and you do this to leave. This has been a turbulent weekend for Ole Miss, champ, because right after the Egg Bowl game, you saw the video of Lane Kiffin confronting the reporter right
Yes.
after the game.
Yes. About
You
certain
know,
words that were said on a podcast. And look, I understand the context of it as far as using, the rapper Ludacris. I'm from the Georgia area and I'm familiar with that. But us as journalists, we got to understand something. These are grown men and women that we're talking about. And when you reference certain rap lyrics, they don't care about the context that you're using it. You're speaking on their name using
yeah,
certain terms. So you got to make sure you keep that professionalism. I'm all about using euphemisms and words, and that's how come you hear me compare stuff to my diet and stuff like that all the time. But to use offensive words, especially when it relates
yeah,
to someone
and
else, yeah, you're gonna get cold cocked behind that. And because he looked like, I thought he was going to hit him at first, I kind of cringed. It's like,
it looked like he was about to do something, champ. He was
yeah,
definitely about to do something. I think it's the best way. Here's the photo that perhaps encapsulates what Lane Kiffin would want to do to him. Well, maybe not that photo, but obviously we all know the photo of Will Smith, Chris Rock at the Oscars a few years ago. That type of reaction with what Lane Kiffin would want to do. It's been a turbulent weekend, champ, and I feel bad for the players because they have to know. And how's this going to impact Ole Miss as far as the college football playoffs, champ? And you know who also looks sad other than the players? How about the good guy Marty Smith from ESPN? Because he had to wait until Sunday to finally figure out when is Lane Kiffin going to actually leave. I mean, of all weekends, Thanksgiving weekend, he could have just been with the family. He could have just spent some time eating some good food, eating some good leftovers, be with the wife and kids and all that stuff. And he had to wait until Sunday for the decision. I mean, the great reporting from him, Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, Pete Thamel. I hope for Lane Kiffin and for LSU's sake, because you mentioned it before, champ, he's the James Franklin of the SEC. He better at least deliver them a college football playoff appearance, at least an SEC championship appearance, because if he doesn't do anything for LSU, because if you look at the contract that he just got, it's like 7 years for approximately $12 million, making him one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL in college football. You know, he finishes with what, a 55-19 record at Ole Miss after just 6 years with the program. So, and LSU, they're trying to move on from Brian Kelly because obviously Brian Kelly didn't do that much. And look at the embarrassment of riches that he had, as you mentioned one time before, champ, from Jaden Daniels, from Brian Thomas Jr. to Kyron Lacey, Malik Neighbors. He better get it done. And also, too, I we have to wait to see what Keith Carter, the athletic director, has to say regarding Lane Kiffin. The statement regarding Lane Kiffin, according to Lane Kiffin, Keith Carter not allowing him to coach for the playoffs. We have to wait and see. Who knows? Maybe it could be that Ole Miss doesn't want him to coach for the college football playoffs because we all know he's about to leave to go to LSU and the players are about to go to LSU, his recruits. So I don't really have a problem with Lane Kiffin leaving. I just have a problem with the timing. The timing. If this were during the off season, I have no problem with it. But it's during the season. We're this late into the season, and you're doing this. And I don't want to hear, to your point, I don't want to hear about the transfer portal. Players are being selfish and all this other stuff. If this is not the epitome of selfishness and, dare I say, unprofessionalism, what is? Because we're about 1 day away from December. We're about to enter the conference championship games, the Big Ten conference championship game, the SEC championship games, the Big 12. And this late into the season, one of the best head coaches in college football is about to leave to go to LSU. Now, again, I hope for LSU it works out for them because you had Brian Kelly for a few years and it didn't pan out. So you hope for Lane Kiffin it works out. I hope, but I would have preferred him finishing the remainder of this season at Ole Miss, and then after the season, if he wanted to move on, move on. But you do this to the players. The players, how are they going to deal with this? How are they going to move on without Lane Kiffin? How are they going to move on from most of the coaching staff? Because most of his offensive staff is going to move on with Ole Miss, with LSU. And plus, who's the interim head coach that will take over for Ole Miss, champ, in the meantime?
The defensive coordinator. I'm not familiar with his name at this point.
I'll look it up. But in the end, this is unexpected timing. It's a damn shame, but it was no surprise, champ, that Lane Kiffin was going to leave because it was reported about the possibility of him leaving to go to LSU, Florida, somewhere else. Big fella, someone who covers SEC football as much as you do, what are your thoughts?
Number one, I don't understand Lane Kiffin's infatuation for these big time programs. I don't understand his infatuation for it because remember the last time what happened when he left Tennessee because USC was his dream job, right? I know I'm not the only one that remembered that, and he got that Tennessee job after going forward after only
5 and
winning
15 with the
exactly.
Oakland Raiders.
Exactly. Thank you very much, New Jersey Genius. So yeah, you got a job at Tennessee and you went 7-6 that year and went to the Peach Bowl, and then you left those young men and went to USC, following up behind the legendary coach Pete Carroll, who was there, who had a dynasty there. So yeah, and you saw how that worked out for you. You ended up going to Florida Atlantic. You ended up being the offensive coordinator for a couple years down there in Alabama. Then you ended up going to Florida Atlantic, which you prospered there. Then you went to Ole Miss. You prospered there. Now, the difference between those two programs, the last two programs that you just left, that being Florida Atlantic and Ole Miss, if you had this is your best season right now, 11-1, and you're going to the college football playoffs. Much like at USC, if you don't win at LSU, it's a bust. And you better ask Brian Kelly how it went for him in the third year. Three places I will always say that you get fired real, real quick: Philadelphia, Auburn, and the SEC. Look how
Mm-hmm.
quick they got. Man, look, let's just go back to what Coach O had won a national championship with one of the greatest teams of all time. Less than 2 years later, he was gone. So you better go down there. You better win because if your run at LSU is anything like it is at like it was at USC, whoo boy, they gonna fry you and fillet you in the media. As far as you leaving, I blame that more so on the rules. You shouldn't be allowed to be talking to coaches during the course of a season. You shouldn't be allowed that. And I blame a little bit of that on the athletic director as well. Go ahead and let him coach out the rest of the season. I mean, I know it's a difficult situation, but let him coach it out, especially if you have a chance to bring a natty to town. You have a legitimate chance to bring a natty to Oxford. This is not, you're in the playoffs. You're in the playoffs. And depending on what happens in that Georgia Alabama game, you could end up getting a higher seed. Unfortunate situation, but to your point, PSP, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't want to hear about none of these other entities, whether it be sports media or anything, talking about these young kids leaving guys high and dry. You're selfish. You're this. You damn right I'm selfish. Because coaches like Lane Kiffin, Bobby Petrino, just to name a few, they get these fat buyouts. They get to leave the team, and they get to leave these kids high and dry. Or in the case of Bobby Petrino, you get to leave NFL teams and these kids high and dry. You get to explore your other options, and you get opportunities regardless. With these young kids, the minute they enter the transfer portal, a lot of them don't get scholarships. There's a common misconception about the transfer portal. People think that the transfer portal is like free agency. It's the pick of the litter. Some of these guys wasn't all that at the place they was at. And so when they enter the transfer portal, they automatically lose their scholarship. And if nobody picks you up, then you just lost to us, much like NFL free agency. So I don't think people understand that. People think that the transfer portal, this is the pick of the litter of somebody else. Somebody else's trash is another person's treasure. This is just like NFL free agency. No, that ain't how it works. Unless you were a starter already, or you was close to being the starter, then guess what? It's not necessarily the pick of the litter. Some of these guys were not that good in another place. They're looking at an opportunity or not getting enough playing time at one place and are looking for another opportunity. Not all of these guys are the pick of the litter. Now you do have your exceptions because I just saw this tight end from one of the HBCUs at Morehouse. He is transferring and trying to go up a division to Division One. He's going from the HBCU ball to Division One. Those guys are the exception. But there's for every one of those, there's about 10 guys who was riding the bitch somewhere and just said, I want to go somewhere else, and nobody picks them up.
Right.
So that's the common misconception about transfer portal. When you enter that transfer portal, you're risking a lot more than you're gaining. That's how come it's so encouraged for you to stay where you are. But in the case of a guy like Nico, who was the star player, when he left Tennessee and went out to UCLA, we filleted him in the media.
Nico Maileva.
Yeah. We filleted him in the media. We said all type of stuff like you're selfish. And then on top of that, you end up making less money because of the taxes that is out there in Los Angeles and Silicon Valley. So the minute that happened, everybody jumped on Nico, especially when they started losing. Especially when they started losing when Deshaun Foster was there.
Yeah, after that 0-3 record. And also, too, you mentioned another point. You mentioned players in college football, they get labeled selfish because bowl game. You at one point made an argument that they should move on from the bowl games and just focus on the playoffs because, again, they don't pay as much attention to it. They don't want to jeopardize their draft stock. They're not going to take seriousness to it.
No.
And look, we can't blame them because at the end of the day, they're making a business decision. So, of course, they have to be selfish. The problem I have, as well as you, Champ, is the hypocrisy. on the media's part. That's the problem that we have.
Yes.
Again, if Lane Kiffin wants to leave to go elsewhere, that's his choice. I don't think you have a problem with it. I just have, I think what we have a problem with is the timing of the decision. That's the problem, and how the media is going to look at it and say, hey, he's a grown man, he's made a decision, but still, Lane Kiffin still has a lot to prove. I mean, has he been to a college football playoffs since he's been at Ole Miss?
No.
What? No.
This
He
has been the
still hasn't
first
won a
one.
national championship. He still has a lot to prove. But meanwhile, wait a minute. When a player makes a decision to enter the transfer portal because things didn't work out for him the previous time, they're labeled immature, selfish, prima donnas. How do you explain this with Lane Kiffin? And how do you explain this with Ole Miss? Turbulence.
Yeah, and I don't believe that players should be labeled as selfish. Look, when this is not just for the transfer portal. This is not just for them leaving for more money. This is for everybody who's saying, to your point, they're opted out of bowl games. If we don't make it to the college football playoff, then we're opting out of a bowl game.
Shout out Jeffrey.
So,
Appreciate it.
so we're opting out of bowl game. Everybody will say, "Well, he opted out of bowl games." I remember when that meant something. It's selfish. No, we don't have. Bowl games don't mean as much as they used to. When you would make a bowl game back in, I'll say 2005, that meant something, especially if it was after Christmas. Now it doesn't mean as much. And I'm not about to put my body on the line just so I can go out there and get hurt in the last game of a bowl game, and then hey, now I can't go to the scouting combine. And that's not to say that you can't get hurt at the scouting combine. We saw that happen before. Somebody tore their ACL at the scouting combine. But yeah, I'm not going to throw my body out there and then you got, well, he's selfish. He's selfish. No, I am selfish. You damn right I'm selfish. You damn
I have
right.
to.
I'm going to protect my business. My body and my skill is my business, and I'm going to protect my business. And when these young men and young women, because a lot of the young women in women's basketball, you seeing a lot more. You see a lot more of those beautiful young ladies. They are transferring in college basketball. You're seeing a lot more of that nowadays. You know, they're transferring from South Carolina to go to other places because South Carolina's a powerhouse. But when
Especially
they
with
make
Dawn
that
Staley as the head coach. And yes,
exactly, Don Staley, she puts in at least a number one overall pick every year. You don't believe that? Just ask Asia Wilson. She's the best player in the league. Where she come from? South Carolina. But I digress.
as well as
Uh,
Aaliyah Boston.
yeah, Camilla Cardoza.
Mm-hmm.
So when those players do that, they're often labeled, well, they're selfish. They're not thinking about the program. Look, this program is only loyal as it is, as long as I'm here. The minute I leave, they will move on to the next person. It's kind of like a job. Guess what? I will go to my job every single day, but the minute I pass away or I pass out and die, I'm no longer able to work. Guess what? That job is going to be on LinkedIn the very very next day, and that's what this is.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is. It's a job.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's a business. And what you're saying is, and I think it sets bad precedent at a certain point. Oh, it's okay for these coaches and these grown men and women who have charge of the program to handle their quote unquote business. But when I take my career to my own hands, then I'm selfish because I'm not thinking about the program. Guess what? I'm not going to be loyal to a program who I know can easily replace me. And if I lose my knees, guess what? Are you going to help me find a damn job? I don't know that for sure. So I could possibly even lose my scholarship, lose my NIL money, lose a lot of things. So I'm not going to be loyal to these programs just because fans or alumni, or even otherwise, are clamoring me to be loyal. No, especially when these coaches, and this ain't just with Lane Kiffin. A lot of these coaches get to look, they get to leave. Remember, and I know you remember this. I'm not so sure we talked about it. Remember, Bob Stoops had to come back to Oklahoma in order to coach the Oklahoma.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley. When Lincoln Riley took the deal to go to USC, Bob Stoops had to coach Oklahoma in that last game. I believe it was the Alamo game, and that was Caleb Williams' last game at Oklahoma before he went to USC. And obviously, he went to USC because of Lincoln Riley, as well as everything else that came along with it. So yeah, I totally understand. I mean, look, he wanted to go to USC, build a program there. I still believe he decided to duck from the SEC smoke, but that's his choice. That's his prerogative. That's his thing. I just didn't like the timing of it. I
Yeah,
felt like that could have been addressed after the season. But this is even worse, champ, because Ole Miss is still in playoff contention.
yeah,
And now they're what, 11-1 this season? The only loss that they've had was against your Bulldogs at Athens, Georgia. No shame there. And now all of a sudden he gets to leave. I just wish it would have been handled after the season. So that way it would have been a constant distraction and dialogue for us as podcasters, media, and the public. That's
yeah,
what I don't like about it. If you're going to handle business, fine, but handle it at a different time and a place. That's what I think. But I agree to your point, champ. I don't want I do not want to hear anyone, especially if it's Paul Feinbaum or anybody in the media labeling a player selfish for entering the transfer portal and going elsewhere. Are you going to keep the same energy with Lane Kiffin? Because I'm interested to see on ESPN and Fox Sports and all these major networks. I want to see how they're going to respond to it because it's going to be pretty interesting to see how they're going to respond to it. And not, then that tells you all you need to know.
yes, indeed. And like I stated, nothing was said when Bob. Like I stated, Bob Stoops, he was coaching in the UFL, the UXFL at the time. He had to come out of retirement, out of college football retirement, because he was coaching down there in the USFL. He had to come out of retirement in order to coach in the bowl game because Lincoln Riley left him with the USC. And let's not even forget what the Bobby Petrino.
The
So these
liar,
coaches,
the pathological liar. I mean,
yes,
remember, we all know the situation in Atlanta, and remember, I think this was during the time when he was in Auburn. Wasn't he confronted by a couple of journalists?
yeah. I mean, I'll never forget. What's the guy's name? Sean Salisbury said on national television, "Be careful about sending your kids to Arkansas because if he can't commit to the NFL or commit to LSU, well, excuse me, commit to Louisville, what the hell makes you think he's going to be able to commit to your kids?" And do you realize how much of a bad precedent that sets? Not to mention, Lane Kiffin was threatening to poach some of the coaches, some of the players. Told his staff, "If you're not on that plane with me, uh,
They're
not
gone.
you're gone. I'm not keeping you on. You will not have a place on my staff." But there was a lot going on. Now I do blame some of that on the athletic director as well. I really think that hey, we're in playoff contention. We have a chance to finish the job, do something special, because in this college football playoffs, outside of maybe four teams, I can't name you any teams outside of the top seven that could have beaten Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. But now that he's gone, you got to ask yourself, how's that going to affect the game plan? How's that going to affect their style of play? How's that going to affect the quarterback play? How is it going to affect a lot of things? Because Lane Kiffin, for all his antics, he is an offensive-minded coach.
Yes, he is. And speaking of LSU, champ, Lane Kiffin, his first game. I'm reading a report right here, a post from Brett McMurphy.
Mm-hmm.
Lane Kiffin's first game with LSU will be at home versus Clemson on September the 5th. He will play both Ole Miss and Tennessee next season, and LSU's remaining 2026 schedule home games against Alabama,
Ooh,
Mississippi State,
ooh.
Texas, Texas A&M, and at Arkansas, Auburn, and Kentucky.
Like I
That's a
said,
pretty tough schedule for him to deal with, especially your first year at LSU.
not only that, look, let's just be clear. Let's be clear. They're bringing you into LSU with the expectations of winning a national championship within the next 2 to 3 years. They're not bringing you in there to build a program like you did at Florida Atlantic. They're not bringing you in there to build a program like you did at Ole Miss. They're not bringing you in there for that because you're not going to get 6 years in order to make the college football playoff like you did when you were at Ole Miss. You're not going to get 6 years. If you don't do it by year 4, guess what? They're going to be giving you the boot, and then they'll have to pay somebody else a buyout. So you're not going to get a chance to build a program. And like I stated, the last big time, huge flagship program that you went to was in Los Angeles. You didn't do that good at USC. You didn't do that well at USC.
The only best year that he had was really 2012 champ. That was when he 2011, and that was when he had Matt Barkley as his quarterback. I mean, he was there, and then after that, of course, if you look at Lane Kiffin
He's
throughout
kind of
his
nomad.
coaching record in college, because obviously we know in the NFL level, 5-15. First year at Tennessee as the head coach, 7-6. 2010 at USC, his first year, 8-5. 2011, 10-2. That was his best year. 2012, 7-6. 2013, 3-2. So during your time in USC, you finished with a record of 28-15. Then your 3 years at FAU, Florida Atlantic University. First year, 11-3. The following year, the second year, a regress year, 5-7. And then year 3, a bounce back year, 10-3. So you finish with a total record at FAU of 26-13. As I mentioned, during his time at Ole Miss, he finished with a record of 55-19, 32-17 record against his conference. But Lane Kiffin, they hired you there to at least compete and win for a national championship.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it before, champ. He's what? The James Franklin of the SEC. And look, James Franklin is in a better situation, I believe, than Lane Kiffin because he is not expected to do much at Virginia Tech. He doesn't have
No.
the expectations. No one is expecting Virginia Tech to start back to from the bottom to the top. I don't think he's going to be asked to be the next Frank Beamer, but he can handle it. There's not too much expectations. I mean, there are other teams he's going to have to deal with. Georgia Tech. Hey, Clemson. Clemson is not the same as it was anymore. And Dabo Swinney, for somebody who criticizes the transfer portal and not making sacrifices and not making adjustments, Dabo Swinney, champ, is the epitome of getting passes because he hasn't gotten ahead with the times. And we don't know what's going to happen with Belichick. And look, you got SMU, you got Georgia Tech. Of course, you got the head coach at Miami. I forget his name all the time. So you got, outside of that, you should be solid if you're James Franklin. But meanwhile, if you're Lane Kiffin, you got UGA, Kalen DeBoer, because again, you've had criticism of Kalen DeBoer early on, champ, but so far Kalen DeBoer has gotten it together, and now he's going back to an SEC championship game. You got to deal with that. You got to deal with Texas A&M. They're coming off a tough loss against Texas. Then you got Texas, so you got other competition.
Don't
So
forget Oklahoma.
don't forget Oklahoma, and this is with not the best offense in the world. But you know what Brett Venables does and provides on defense. You know about that. There ain't no easy task for you to deal with. So what's the likelihood of LSU actually going that far? And if he doesn't, champ, just like we gave all this criticism with Brian Kelly, how's it going to be with Lane Kiffin? Now, James Franklin, even though you look at his record against top 5, top 25 teams, he doesn't have the greatest record, but it's easy to like James Franklin because, again, of his character and reputation. Lane Kiffin, you better be on your best behavior or win enough football games in order for you to have a job at LSU. Otherwise, you're going to be out. And it's going to be ugly, like you always say, uglier than a masterpiece sneaker.
How ironic is he's in Louisiana and we said that, but I digress. But just being real, look, with James Franklin, they're bringing him in to build the program.
And he's taking his time.
Yeah.
That's the also most important thing. There's
Yeah,
no rush
let
for
me
him
take his
to
time.
win a national championship anytime
Yeah,
soon.
yeah. They're bringing you in to win a natty at LSU. So you better, let's hope that that coaching that you did at Oxford comes in handy. And it better bear fruit real, real quick. It better bear fruit because I don't know what to say at this point because, like I stated, when he went and hit, like I stated, when he was at Florida Atlantic and Ole Miss, it was the building of the program. And he eventually got it to what it is right now. With LSU, they're not going to wait 6 years for you to win a natty or to reach the college football playoffs. They're not going to wait 6 years for you to reach the college football playoffs. It better be immediately bearing of the fruit. So, yeah. Hey, I hope you know what you're doing. Uh, although his record is good, it hasn't been impressive. Unlike Brian Kelly had some college football playoff appearances on his record
At
and
Notre
had a
Dame.
national championship appearance on his record. Lane Kiffin doesn't have that.
Yeah,
So
but here's the thing, though. I think with Brian Kelly, remember he wasn't known for having the greatest reputation, as I mentioned, champ.
yeah, he wasn't known to having the greatest reputation either. And it's quite ironic you follow up one guy with a bad reputation with another guy that was kind of a nomad. Because you got to ask yourself this: what's going to happen if somebody throws some more money at him? You saw what happened when the Tennessee USC thing, and remember that whole look. I remember the press conference like it's yesterday. And I remember he did that press conference for Tennessee. He was talking about how he was going to beat Florida, and that was back during the Tim Tebow days. We're going to do the dance when we beat Florida and all of that. And he got there 1 year, went 7-6, and basically left for USC. And then he got to USC where he had all the talent, all the resources, and everything like that. Much like Lincoln Riley and did nada, zilch.
At least
So
Lincoln Riley, you can say at least, hey, I mean, I haven't won a national championship, but I have developed Heisman Trophy winners, some number one overall picks. I am just as good as an offensive mind. I just, however, when it comes to the SEC, and we saw it on full display, Georgia, that was the closest he had to at least getting to a national championship. And then when it came to Alabama and LSU,
no, but that's the thing. He was brought to USC in order to win national championships. That's what he was brought there for. People don't want to acknowledge that.
he was
He
there
was
to,
brought there in order to win national championship. He
but he
wasn't
also
there.
didn't want the SEC smoke champ. You also
Well,
know
the
that as
thing
well.
is, look, it's kind of like, look, I'm gonna make an analogy here, but it's kind of like you not wanting to go to the. It's kind of like you not wanting to go to a swimming pool, but then you end up jumping in the river. I mean, and that's just a kind
That's
analogy.
just a generous way of saying that he contradicted himself.
Well, yes, because guess what? I don't want to jump in the pool, but you ended up going to USC, and now they're no longer in the
The
Pac-12,
Pac-12, they're in the Big
where
Ten.
it's offensive minded, it's offensive dominated, it's you don't
Now
have
you
to
got to
have
focus
necessary.
on the
Now
defense.
you have no. Now your team has to be good. Your whole team has to be good. At Oklahoma, you could get away with before they moved to the SEC. At Oklahoma, you could get away with having a bad defense
No,
and
no,
just
champ. No, champ. What I mean by that is in the Pac-12, just like in the Big 12, he could get away because I'm a brilliant offensive mastermind. I don't have to prioritize defense as much.
yeah. I
Now
don't
that
have
I
to
have
have
to go to the Big 10, I have to prioritize defense.
you
So
must.
that's
And
the
like I
thing.
said, they're worse than. And look, in the Big Ten, it's harder than in the SEC right now because you got to compete with Ohio State. They have a Kirby Smart up there in the form of Ryan Day.
And let's not forget Indiana.
Yeah, now you have Kurt Signetti. So yeah, there's a lot of big time coaches up there that you're gonna have to compete with, and not to mention Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning is a hell of a coach.
Yes, at Oregon. Yes.
Yeah. So you went from dealing with Kellen DeVore from Kellen DeVore, Kirby Smart, and Coach V. Coach V came there after he left, just to name a few. To now dealing with, I mean, and before James Franklin's left, he was doing a hell of a job. He just so happened to leave. And then don't forget about Coach Sharoni in Michigan. he had a darn good year, for him, for all the controversy that was around Michigan. So
Yeah,
you went
especially
from
during the
jumping,
hardball time. But yeah,
yeah. So you went from jumping from saying I don't want to jump in the pool to jumping in the river, and now you're all money.
do you see Lane Kiffin winning a national championship at any time soon at LSU?
I don't think so, because the thing is, Kellen DeVore is still a hell of a coach. We got to take into consideration this: you still haven't left the SEC.
That's the thing.
You
You
still haven't
decided
left
you,
the
you decided
SEC,
to go from one team to another team with
and the
high
expect.
expectations, and
Yes,
they won a national championship
yes,
with not the biggest brand head coach at Ed Oregon. They brought in Brian Kelly, who, if you look at based on accomplishments in Mirror, a big upgrade. But what did it culminate during his time at
nothing.
LSU? You only got one Heisman Trophy winner. You only went to one SEC championship game. You got embarrassed in that game against Georgia. And you had an embarrassment amount of talent. Like I mentioned, Jaden Daniels, rest his soul, Karen Lacey, Malik Neighbors, Brian
Mhm.
Thomas Jr. When we talk about we talk about OSU as far as wide receiver tree, I still believe they're number one. But LSU wide receiver tree ain't shabby either.
No, indeed not.
So my thing is with Lane Kiffin, he'll probably get by because of how great he is as an offensive mind, champ. And LSU wants to get offensive talent. But unless you completely change that program and get to some college playoff appearances, it's going to be tough for you to handle. So I don't I don't know about him winning a national championship, being decent at least, but LSU is just tired for being decent. They want natties. They
Yeah,
want to be in the same conversation with Bama or right now with Ohio State with the new playoff system. And if they are stuck with just decent or a slight improvement, they look at that as failure, regardless.
exactly. The thing is, you left Ole Miss, but you still haven't left the SEC. You still have to deal with Alabama every single year. You still have to deal with Kirby Smart every single year. And those are just two guys at the top end. You could outcoach them when you was at Ole Miss, much less now. And now the pressure's all on you at this point because of how you left, the school in which you went to, and the fact that they're expecting a national championship. That's why they got you, to win a national championship and get
And
into
the
the
money.
and the money. So you got a deck. Look, the house of cards is stacked. And if you don't watch out, it could fall on you. Like I stated, you're still in the SEC, unlike Lincoln Riley. You still got to go up against Kirby Smart every single year. You still got to go up against Kellen DeVore every single year. And look, Auburn just got a new coach. He's a hellified coach. Got to go up against him every single year. You got to go up against guys who you just faced at Oxford.
So you're gonna have to redo that all again. But
And it's not
champ,
gonna
and
and they're not gonna be patient with you
no, they're
at
not. They're not.
LSU.
They're certainly not going to be patient, especially with the athletic director, especially with that fan base, the great legacy and tradition of LSU. So, this is going to be tough. I mean,
Three
it's going to
national
be tough.
championships in the past 20 years.
It's going to be tough, champ. It's going to
Yeah.
be tough for them to move on. It's going to be tough for LSU to get back to it. As for Ole Miss, it's sad because after this, where did they go? After this season, who they're gonna hire as the head coach? Pete Golden will be is the defensive coordinator for Ole Miss. He'll be the he's the interim head coach. He will be the head coach for Ole Miss for the remainder of the season. But how does Ole Miss respond, champ? And
If they
because
come
if
out
he does
here,
well, if the DC does well, then hey, might as well try to keep him. And if it doesn't turn out well, then who are you going to find that's comparable to Lane Kiffin?
I'll say this. I'll say this. If they come out there and win, in the great words of what's that movie, Field of Dreams, they come out there and win the whole damn thing.
That would be a hell of a college. That would hell be a sports story
That'll be a hell of a sports story, but that's even gonna ante it up even more
for Lane
because now
Kiffin
you
to
got to
deliver.
win. Now people are gonna say, "Well, that was Lane Kiffin's team." No, you left. I understand it was your team, but you left, and now the players are not too happy about that. So I mean, look, whether they go from here, if they can win at least one college football playoff game, that will validate a little bit of something. But you can rest assured it's lighting the fire up at these players. It's lighting the fire up under these players to say, look, let's just win without him. He might be gone, but the talent is still here. Talent is still here. But it's just unfortunate for those players. For this is an opportunity to do something that I don't think has ever been done in Ole Miss's history. I mean, think about the players who came through Ole Miss. Archie Manning Sr. himself, Patrick Willis, Eli Manning, Quinshawn Jenkins, those type of guys, and they've never won a natty. Think about that for a minute. At one point, look, people don't understand this, but at one point, Patrick Willis and Eli Manning was on the same team, and they still couldn't win a natty. So let me check that in order to make sure. I think that was the case, but I don't. But I don't want to speak out of turn.
I'll try to look it up for you as well, champ. Because I know Eli Manning was in that 2004 NFL draft. Of course, he was the number one overall pick. He did play. Yes, he did play at LSU from 2003 to 2006. Eli Manning was there in Ole Miss during that time in
Yes,
03.
indeed. So two Hall of Famers. And Patrick Willis, he was on pace to be one of the greatest of all time. So those two guys were the same team, and they didn't even get close to a national championship. They didn't even sniff one. So you had a chance this year, with all the parity going on in college football, to win a natty. And like I stated, all the blame doesn't go on Lane Kiffin because you can, at a certain point, even in the NFL, coaches do get other jobs. We saw Kyle Shanahan get a job from the San Francisco 49ers, right before the Super Bowl. But you could have let him finish it out. So all of this doesn't lie on Lane Kiffin. Some of it lies with, the
The
athletic.
athletic director, Keith Carter, and
Yes,
also Ole Miss.
you should have let him just say, "Hey, look, finish out the season, finish your obligation, and then you know what? Let's just leave gracefully." So
That
all of
way, it
this,
would have been a PR nightmare.
yes, that way it wouldn't have been a PR nightmare. So all of this, I place a lot of that on him, a lot of that on them as well. I think 60% of it because you had say in it, although he took another job. The thing is, he could take another job and still be the coach for the remainder of the year. Like I stated, we've seen it before. We've seen
Absolutely.
we've seen coaches say, "Hey, I'm going to leave next year, but hey, I'm going to finish out this year. Let's go win some games." So,
All right, champ. But let's get into some football. Man, there was one NFL game I particularly watched in Charlotte, North Carolina, between the Los Angeles Rams and the Carolina Panthers. Man, it was a really compelling game. The Carolina Panthers, who were the underdogs in that game, won 31-28. Derek Brown, that defensive tackle, man, he had a game. He had the pass deflection that led to Matthew Stafford's first interception. And of course, that sack, which caused the lost fumble and ended the game. But Bryce Young had a heck of a game, champ.
yeah,
After coming off an embarrassing Monday Night Football loss to the San Francisco 49ers, in which he was awful in that game. 15 to 20, 206 yards, 3 touchdown passes. He was only sacked twice, a QBR on a scale of 0 to 100, 85.6, a passer rating of 147.1. You look at Carolina, 40 carries, 164 yards running the football, an average of 4.1 yards a carry. I mean, The real reason why they won that game, they took care of ball control. They took care of the turnover issue. And Matthew Stafford, prior to that game, 30 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, did not pick the bad time to cause those turnovers. Although Puka Nakua, that miraculous catch, that one-handed catch, you saw that catch he made earlier, Champ? That was incredible.
Nasty. that was amazing.
It was, and no wonder why Los Angeles decided to move on from Cooper Cup and decided to go forward with Puka. But the Carolina Panthers, shout out to their head coach Dave Canales, their first year head coach. They are now 7-6. And again, before people may say Bryce Young is not the best or flashy or the greatest quarterback, look, no one is saying that Bryce Young is an elite or great quarterback. But he is promising. I do think he is promising because over the years he has improved, champ. Let's not act like it's all on Bryce Young. We have to look at the Carolina Panthers organization since David Tepper, who replaced Jerry Richardson back in 2018. This is actually one of the few years that Carolina under Tepper is actually succeeding. As BRF mentioned, Teatera McMillan, who is one of the best young wide receivers, one of the best young rookie wide receivers, because at one point we were discussing Emeka Ibuka. But wait a minute, we can't forget about McMillan. They drafted him that high in the first round for a reason. Somebody for Bryce Young to have a target with. Jalen Coker stepped up big, especially with that touchdown that he had. Matthew Stafford, remember, champ, when it comes to his record, and remember, throughout during that game, it was raining. It was raining, and Matthew Stafford doesn't have the greatest record in the world when it comes to snow or rain. So I got to give credit to their defense, Derek Brown. Derek Brown is something at that defensive tackle position, champ. And they won the turnover battle. And when you look at this team, they still have a chance to win their division. Even though Tampa Bay won against the Arizona Cardinals, it wasn't in dominant way. Arizona still had a chance to win that game though, 20-17. But I love what I saw from the Panthers. They had to bounce back after that tough loss on Monday Night Football. What a great way for them to bounce back. Bryce Young was really promising. As long as he can take care of the football, he doesn't have to be pretty or flashy, champ. As you always say, don't be pretty, just be good. I think the Panthers have a good chance to not only make the playoffs, but perhaps win the division. Because if you look at it at this point in the NFC South, champ, outside of Tampa, and I don't know if we'll talk about your Falcons. I don't want to devastate you. I mean, you said it yourself. You weren't surprised that they would lose to the New York Jets, and unfortunately, they did. And the Saints, I thought they should have beaten the Miami Dolphins. I mean, Tua, with some of those throws that he made, I mean, he was awful. But, champ, man, what were your thoughts on the Panthers-Rams game?
Panthers are between a rock and a hard place right about now. They're between a rock and a hard place because they make the playoffs this year. You got to ask yourself, what are they going to do as far as Bryce Young's contract is concerned? You got to ask yourself that.
Oh, by the way, champ, for those who may not know, Matthew Stafford, his record going up in rain or snow, 1-8.
Damn. Shit. Wow. That's amazing. You gotta ask yourself that because right now you're on the verge of making the playoffs. And you know how thirsty these NFL general managers get when it comes to quarterbacks. Like I always say, I compare him to the guy that comes to the dance a little bit too early before everybody gets there. And he grabs onto and he latches on to the first thing he sees and dances with them all night long before everybody gets there. And that's what these organizations are doing with quarterbacks right now. They're just latching on to them. Because if they make the playoffs this year, especially if they win a division and manage to get a playoff win, you ask yourself what are they going to do with their contracts, especially if it passes, especially if they're looking at the eye test. The eye test tells us this: Bryce Young, when he has his best games, he throws the ball under 30 times. Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And Rico,
Rico
they
Dowdle, the former running back of the Dallas Cowboys.
yeah, those two guys are able to take a lot of pressure off of him. Those change of pace backs. So you got to ask yourself, are you willing to, if you win a division and make the playoffs, are you willing to back up that Brinks truck, or does he have to come in at a hometown discount? So they're between
Yeah,
the rock and the hard place. As far as Bryce Young is concerned, I love the improvement that he's making. I'm loving the improvement that he's making. If you really look at it, Alabama is kind of ruling at the quarterback position right about now. Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, now Bryce Young is doing his thing. So can't take credit. Got to give credit where credit is due, man. I know a lot of people don't like Bryce Young. He's a little bit of a smaller quarterback. He's not the prototypical quarterback, but you got to give credit where credit is due. But I believe the Carolina Panthers are between the rock and the hard place right about now. They are between the rock and the hard place because that contract is looming, and you have to ask yourself this: are you willing to say no? We're going to draft another quarterback, or are you willing to say, hey, we're going to back up the Brinks truck, and
pick
we're
up
going
the
to
fifth-year option.
pick up the victory option
No,
and
no, you pick up the. You saw what happened with the Giants with Daniel Jones by them not picking up that fifth-year option. You saw what happened in year 4 when they made the playoffs and they won a playoff game. What happened? They paid Daniel Jones $40 million, and now he's with the Colts. So my
yeah,
thing is, here, Carolina, I pick up that fifth-year option so that way, in case anything happens in year 4, I don't have to pay him, and I could perhaps trade him. And the thing is with Bryce Young, we have too much expectations for a lot of these young quarterbacks. And like you always say, comes down to coaching. Coaching makes a substantial difference. Because you look at Caleb Williams now with Ben Johnson, and Caleb Williams still has a lot to prove. He still, even though Chicago right now, they have the number 1 seed in the NFC as we speak, Caleb Williams needs to improve as far as with his accuracy, champ, which you even admitted. Because Caleb Williams in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles and other games, there have been times he's been struggling throwing the football. I believe if he were more consistent as a passer, Chicago would have a much better chance of coming out of the NFC. Because early on, their defense was starting to regress, but then they've started to pick up. So I think with Carolina, this would be a team to be interesting to see in postseason if they make the playoffs. Kind of like with Houston, champ, because Houston, and they're starting to come now. They just beat the Indianapolis Colts, even though Jacksonville, they have the number 1 seed in the AFC South. Not for long, because we know what D'Amico Ryans represents on that defensive side, especially with Daniel Hunter, Will Anderson in the crew, and now CJ Stroud is back. And even though CJ Stroud is not the same CJ Stroud from his rookie season, they still have a chance. So my thing is, and with Bryce Young, look, I just have a problem with the hypocrisy when people say, you know what, Bryce Young is awful, terrible. Granted, he hasn't had the greatest career in the world. I'll be the first to tell you that. But I do think he has shown some promise. And I do think with coaching and the structure, and now that they've surrounded him with good enough pieces, I think he can be okay. Do I consider him a franchise caliber quarterback? No, I do not. But I do think he's a quarterback with promise. For the Rams, I'm going to move on from that loss as much as possible. I still believe they can be the team to come out the NFC. The turnovers, though, however, and again, The reason why that stat is very important, Matthew Stafford's record going up against rain or snow. What happens if the road is not to LA? They may have to face a team in cold, inclement weather. How are they going to handle? How is Matthew Stafford going to handle those types of circumstances?
Hey, you're gonna have to clinch. That's the thing. You gotta have to make sure it comes to LA. That's the thing. You gotta do your job. You gotta do your job. So you gotta make sure that, hey, if you know, look, I know I'm not. I knew I wasn't good at a lot of things when I was a boxer. So guess what? Mike Tyson, he wasn't good past the third round. So hey, knock him out in the first. So knock him out in the first three. That's what you got to do. You got to get back to playing football and make sure that and pray for a little bit of luck.
Do you
But
think they
right
should
now,
push for
Chicago,
Aaron Donald?
huh?
Do you think they should push for Aaron Donald to come back out of retirement?
I would love to see him and Jared verse together. I would love to see that, but I don't think he would be back in the capacity that we would think he would be. He'd probably come in on third down and rush the passer, but I'll still love to see it. So I think he retired too early,
I
much like
still think
Patrick, much
yes.
like
I thought
Patrick Willis and Luke Kuechly. But I understand why. Hey, I've done everything. I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest defensive tackle of all time. And when you talk about, look, I don't think people understand something about the Rams. The Rams are a defensive line factory. They are a defensive line factory. When you think about their history with defensive line, it is unparalleled. And you start and end with the fearsome four. Y'all don't know who the fearsome four is. That's Deacon Jones,
yes.
Merlin Olsen, Merlin Olsen, Lamar Lundy, and you had Rosie Greer. You can start with those guys. Two of those guys are in the Hall of Fame. Deacon Jones, he's arguably one of the greatest defensive ends of all time. Then you go from there to Fred Dreyer. If y'all don't know who Fred Dreyer is, I learned about Fred Dreyer through my father. If you used to watch Fox back in the day, the show Hunter, that was Fred Dreyer, who used to star in that one. Fred Dreyer, the man who had two safeties in one game. Then Jack Youngblood. Then Kevin Carter. Remember the great Kevin Carter that was up there in St. Louis
Right.
when they were the St. Louis Rams. So if the Rams don't know how to draft anything else, they know how to draft great defense. And let's not forget Kevin Green, the late great Kevin Green. Shout out to not only was he one hell of a defensive end, one hell of a pass rusher, but also he was an Army veteran. He was a captain in the Army Reserves. So
Don't forget Chris Long too.
Chris Long, Chris Long. So yeah, the history of defensive linemen in St. Louis slash LA is second to none. You're not going to
I
find. I
agree.
mean, for you to be the greatest defensive lineman of all time and you come from that organization, that's saying a lot.
I think the Rams will have a bounce back. But again, I wouldn't sleep on Seattle, and I definitely wouldn't sleep on San Francisco. But speaking of San Francisco, champ, you and I, we predicted that we had the Cleveland Browns upsetting the San Francisco 49ers. Our good friend Jay Will from the Stay Tuned podcast is celebrating right now.
Yes.
Champ, I don't understand Kevin Stefanski. I really don't understand the play calling. I understand you want to run the football more because that's your specialty on what you do on offense. I thought Shadour Sanders looked early on. I thought he looked okay. He looked solid. He definitely looked good when he connected on that touchdown pass, champ. I do not understand for the life of me with Kevin Stefanski. Why would you go for it on 4th and 1 in your own territory when you're down two and your defense was playing that well at that point. And once you did that, you changed the momentum of the game, and San Francisco just scored 16 unanswered points. And look what you did with Christian McCaffrey. Only 20 carries for 53 yards in that game. I mean, you did your part to limit Christian McCaffrey, and you gave the offense from San Francisco opportunities. So I don't understand why you would go for it inside your own territory. It's one thing if you want to do it late in the game on the last possession or something like that, but when it's like in the second half, and look, Shadour Sanders didn't play outstanding or spectacular. I thought early on in the first half he looked good, but then he struggled, especially holding on to the football too long. But Kevin Stefanski, to me, champ, it just seems like to me he's clueless. Clearly got outcoached. I mean, if you're a Browns fan, this should be very frustrating for you because you had a good enough chance to win this game. And I knew once he decided to go for it on 4th and 1, that changed the momentum. So, what were your thoughts?
Not only that, why in the world would you go for it? I don't understand. Why in the world are you I understand the penalty, but you go for a 2-point conversion rather than just kicking the ball, kick
At
the
least
field
they
goal?
now, in fairness to him, they'll
They
say,
made
"Hey,
it,
they
but
made it," but I don't understand why because they moved up 5 yards because of an encroachment or an offside penalty. But why not go for the extra point? The argument, okay, fine, you want to say the weather, but no, duh, it's Cleveland, it's outside.
yeah,
But why would you go for it for two? Now, in fairness to him, it did work. But why go for it on 4th and 1 in your own territory when you're only
yeah.
down two and it's only the third quarter?
And not to mention you making a lot of questionable play calls. I mean, you're running the ball. You got 7 minutes left, and you're still trying to run the ball.
You usually throw it in that type
Yeah,
of
you're trying.
situation.
If my only logical conclusion, because I don't believe in conspiracy theories, I don't believe in them. Although a lot of conspiracy theories turn out to be true, but I'm not going to believe in this one. The one that's swirling around on the internet at this point, I would say. I don't believe the whole sabotage situation. I believe that they're tanking. I truly believe it. Now, I don't know what player that they're trying to shoot for, or, or if they're just trying to get a big fat ass haul when it comes to you know trying to get the number one overall pick, so that you can try to turn that number one overall pick into a Chicago like haul, so you can completely rebuild a team in a short period of time. Because despite everything, they got a lot of good key pieces this past year in the draft. They got another tight end to go along with David Njoku. One of the rookies that they have is their leading tackler. They get Quinshawn Judkins, Anti Simpson. I believe that they could be like Ernest Bonner and Kevin Mack was back in the '80s, depending on what quarterback they end up getting. I believe that they have a lot of pieces in place, but I don't. I think they're looking at long term, because I don't think people are understanding this. They have to open up a new stadium in a couple of years. Have to open up a new stadium in a couple of years. So I think they are tanking at this point. I don't believe the whole sabotage situation. I believe that they're doing just enough, but not enough.
And when you mean by sabotaging, you're referring to Shadour Sanders because there have been a lot of people who think on social media, whether Cam Newton or others, who think that Kevin Stefanski is sabotaging Shadour Sanders. But I
No,
think, champ,
I think they're tanking. I really think they're
I,
tanking. They're trying to get a
you
big
could.
haul in order to build a team a little bit more. I think they need a lot more pieces. They need offensive line. They need wide receiver. They need a lot of pieces on this offensive side of the ball. You got something special with Quinshawn Judkins, David Njoku, the other tight end, and Ty Simpson. I think they got those guys in place. What they're really needing is offensive line play and wide receiver play. You have a good defense. They're looking and saying, hey, we need to get better fast, depending on who the quarterback is. I don't think they're really set on that at this point in time. But I believe they're trying to tank in order to get a big old haul so they can get some more draft picks on their team. I don't believe they're trying to sabotage him. And, you know, if you got some evidence of that, please present it to me. I'll be more than happy to look over it at a certain point. I don't think they're sabotaging him. I think they're more or less tanking and sort of they're looking at what they have in these draft picks over the course of the next year and saying we have the draft picks, we have almost 11 draft picks, two of them are in the first round. I believe they're looking at those two draft picks that they have, and they're looking at them and saying, hey, this could be our safe haven, and this would be our chance to just put ourselves over the top. And especially with their draft pick, that probably is going to be a top 10 pick, they're looking at their pick and saying, hey, this could very well be our number one pick. This should be our chance to do exactly what the Chicago Bears did. Remember, the Chicago Bears, when Bryce Young came out, they
Yeah, the
traded.
2023 NFL draft, and I think that's Tennessee. Tennessee probably going to end up having the number one overall pick, champ, because since Arizona, they still haven't managed to win not one game. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I do believe Tennessee, they will probably end up having the number one overall pick, and they will take a page out of Chicago's book, and they're going to hear offers from other teams because the Indiana quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, who is right now the candidate, one of the top candidates for the Heisman Trophy, and who will face Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. If he wins this and if he plays well, I think that's enough of a case for him to win the Heisman, given how great of a season Indiana has had, being undefeated, remaining undefeated. I think he's going to end up being the number one overall pick, and there's going to be some team out there that's in desperate need of a quarterback to trade in order to get him. But champ, you say that you don't believe Kevin Stefanski is sabotaging Shadour Sanders, but you're not giving him a chance either. That is fair to say, champ, because when you're consistently relying the football, it's one thing to rely on running the football if you're trying to milk the clock.
Yeah.
If you have a lead, but when you're trailing and when you want to try to slow down the clock, champ, it's incumbent upon you to at least try to throw the football a little bit more. And I don't see that with Kevin Stefanski with the play calling. I don't see him giving Shadour Sanders enough of a chance. Whether you believe in Shadour Sanders or not, at the end of the day, you still want to give him a chance. You still want to give him at least an opportunity. And I think that's fair to say with Kevin Stefanski. Whether you believe in Shadour Sanders is not the guy or not, champ. We don't know. I mean, it to me, it seems like he's not Shadour. To me, Shadour Sanders is not Kevin Stefanski's cup of tea. And
Well,
we did see the game in which they beat the Raiders last week when Shadour Sanders debuted. He didn't even get the game ball, despite the fact he became the first Browns quarterback to win a debut game compared to all the other quarterbacks. But okay, fine. But in this particular game against the 49ers, this could have been a good test for at least Shadour Sanders to at least try to give him an opportunity to win. And by you constantly running the football, even though that is your expertise in terms of the Cleveland Browns offense, you gotta at least try to do something unconventional and try to throw the football. You see, champ, you see how different it is because with other teams, it's kind of like when what you say with Buffalo. You constantly lament on them not handing the ball off to James Cook. Stop heavily relying on Josh Allen to use his arm and legs. Well, Cleveland, Kevin Stefanski, and you are a two-time coach of the year. You've known for running the football from your days in Minnesota and from Cleveland your first year with Baker Mayfield. If you know you're trailing, and if you want to put yourself in a position to win, why not throw the football?
in the great words of Coach O'Ryan off of the Mighty Ducks 3, you cannot be afraid to lose. And if he makes some, and look, I'm going to just be real. If he makes a mistake, so what? Because I believe two things can be true. You're not helping the team by running the football with 7 minutes left to go. and you know that you have a quarterback capable of getting the ball down the field. But you saw it. You've seen it. So I look. I'm gonna just be real. I don't believe in that conspiracy theory. However, it's kind of questionable when you're running the ball and you
It
have
does
a
make you
chance to
does
come back.
make you wonder, champ.
It does make you wonder. Like I said, I try. Look, I'm just gonna be real. I try not to be that guy. It's a conspiracy. I try not to be that guy. I try to keep it textbook sports. But if you're not going all out to try, you play at the end of the day. In the great words of Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. Play to win the game. So if you're running the ball with 7 minutes to freaking go, and hey, look, and if you're trying to protect him a little bit too much, hell, allow him to make the mistakes. Hell, teach. Look, as a teacher, you're not only just a coach, you're a teacher. Sometimes you got to let your students learn from their mistakes. If he throws an interception or two, guess what? Hey, let him have at it. But I mean, you just can't sit around here and try to run the Wildcat. And the thing is, look, he's not the first quarterback that wasn't really Kevin Stefanski's cup of tea. Baker Mayfield wasn't his cup of tea. They wanted an adult in the room. And this regime right here, I believe this
Although
regime
I
is
think,
going.
well, champ, well, yeah, Kevin Stefanski may not, Baker Mayfield may not have been Kevin Stefanski's cup of tea, but at the same time, that was prior to that. Remember in year two, year one with Baker Mayfield, with Hugh Jackson. Remember Hard Knocks when Hugh Jackson said, "Congratulations, Baker Mayfield, you've been promoted as the number two quarterback, the backup quarterback." But at the same time, Cleveland, you did draft them number one overall, and you may have to decide on what you want to do with the quarterback position. Because if you're having problems with Shadour Sanders and Dylan Gabriel, what the hell do you think you're going to be with Deshaun Watson? And you know what Deshaun Watson, based on his play and coming off the Achilles, the only positive thing that Deshaun Watson has done thus far is do his part to mentor Shadour Sanders. That's about it. Besides that, I haven't heard anything positive regarding Deshaun Watson. But look, I understand you're not into conspiracy theories and stuff like that, champ. I know who you are. You're very fair. You're very objective. The problem is, I got to hear Rex Ryan's ass talk about Shadour. And you know how much of a critic that he is of Shadour Sanders.
Again, I'm just gonna be real. Rex Ryan wasn't no hellified coach anyway. So
We
it's
all
just
know his
like
father.
it hit. Look, you wasn't no hellified coach. You had those two magical years, and that was it. And you was known more for your personality. You were a poor man's John Gruden, except for the defensive side of the ball. Matter of fact, you were a broke man's John Gruden, except on the defensive side of the ball. You had those 2 good years where you had that magnificent defense. You was talking smack about Bill Belichick. I didn't come here to kiss the rings of Bill Belichick, and they smacked you every single year. So guess what? And some of the stuff I will say it is helpful advice, but you don't have to be overly critical. Like he told Shadour right about making sure when y'all win, make sure you say we, and when you lose, make sure you say I. So that way you can be seen as more accountable. That's fair. But all of this other stuff about, you're sitting on the sideline by yourself. The MVP's looking for you. No, go sit down. You were not a hellified coach in order to, you were not this one hellified coach in order to be telling somebody all of this other stuff, especially when you was on the cover of the New York Times about feet and stuff like that. So you over here covering up when y'all played the New York Giants, you had players covering up their banners in the Meadowlands, all types of stuff. So guess what? These guys are rookies. They're gonna have to learn. Let them learn. And it looks like Shadour has learned. The only thing that people heard about, only thing that people are gonna harp on the issue about Shadour Sanders is the fact that he did the mind thing. That was it. That was it.
Mind
When
thing.
he was like, when people was asking him questions about why is he not the number two quarterback, he was like, you know, they're gonna hop on that. And
Well, I mean, he was put in an uncomfortable situation, so he had to take a PC approach because how it would look, and plus he didn't want to be punished for conduct detriment. So, could you really blame Shador in that situation?
can I blame him? No, but could he have just said, and this is just me being fair, hey, the coaches make the rules. I have to be supportive of my
Then
teammates.
then
I'm
just
not the
say
guy to be a
then
pro.
just say that
Yeah,
and that alone. I've said it's not look, it's not my call, it's not my
yeah.
prerogative, it's the coaches, it's the team's decision, and I will respect it and I will go with it. But the problem is, champ, with this loss, you know Rex Ryan's going to say something critical about Shadur Sanders. It's already predetermined. It's already orchestrated, in my opinion. I would not be surprised nor shocked at all if you tune in to watch ESPN's Get Up this morning and Rex Ryan bashing Shadur Sanders. That's the thing I have to unfortunately hear, because if you're just going to say this is all on Shadur Sanders, no. I look at special teams. I look at Kevin Stefanski's lack of creativity. Jared Judy, after having an excellent season you had last year. So, I mean, champ, I mean, it's real frustrating. But if I am, whether you believe in the guy or not, champ, I do believe you should at least give him a chance to see. And I'm not going to say that Kevin Stefanski is entirely trying to set Shador Sanders to fail, but you're not giving him an opportunity either. And
No,
if you take away from an opportunity from him, how are the rest of the teams, rest of the players are going to look at? Look, I mean, look at Myles Garrett and what he said early on about Shador Sanders when they lost to Baltimore. Look at Shador Sanders coming to Dylan Gabriel's support or defense. That's the thing, unfortunately, that what it is. I got to give credit to San Francisco. They came in, they won that game. But I think Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion, with the creativity, not giving Shador Sanders enough of an opportunity, because as you often say, champ, with the Buffalo Bills, let James cook.
hmm
Stop heavily relying on Josh Allen in the passing game. Cleveland, their problem, they're heavily relying too much on the running game while they're trailing. Normally, when you trail, you're supposed to throw the football to either stop the clock. Even in completion, you stop the clock. You still have enough time for you to come back in that game. And ironically, you choose to run the football. And I just don't think he's given Shador Sanders enough of an opportunity to succeed. Whether you believe he's the guy or not, champ,
You
that's a
play to
time.
win the
That's a
game.
different story for another day. Find ways to win, as Al Davis said. Just win, baby.
Yeah,
Just win.
you play to win the game, and I don't like the play calling that's going on. Like I stated, the only logical explanation that I will say, and to be fair, and this is why I say to be fair, is hey, you must be tanking at this point. You have to be. Because if you're running the ball with 7 minutes left to go, it has to be that. I mean, it just has to be. You have to be tanking because there's no coach in his right mind.
Either tanking or losing his job or trying to get out of Cleveland. And where is he trying to go to? Cancun?
Well, I mean, I don't look. I don't know where he may be forcing himself to, but I mean, could be trying to force himself into another situation. I mean, I don't know. But like I stated, I think they're trying. If you're running the ball with 7 minutes left to go, and you're not in the goal line situation, then either you're tanking or something else is going on. And like I stated, I'm trying not to be that guy with the conspiracy theories and everything. I'm trying to be fair and objective, but that can be the only logical explanation is that you're tanking. Yeah, you're doing it on purpose right before our eyes. Because if you wasn't, then guess what? You'd be trying to air that ball out like a ceiling fan. And you're down by 2 scores against the 49ers, who have a banged up defense, by the way.
Yeah, because most of their defensive players, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, a lot of them are out for the season. So,
Yeah.
um, it was just more of Kyle Shanahan's play calling. It was far better play calling than Kevin Stefanski's. And I just don't think that Kevin Stefanski gave his offense, particularly Shadour, enough of an opportunity. Their defense did most of what they could, but well, as you say, champ, when the defense is on that football field too long, they're gonna get tired.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of being tired, champ, I hate to talk about this, but it does affect you. Your Atlanta Falcons. I'll give you credit on this one. Even though you picked Atlanta to win, you were not at all surprised that they would lose. They are now 4-8 this season. Kirk Cousins played well. 21 to 33, 234 yards, was only sacked twice. One touchdown despite a QBR of 32.2. But Kirk Cousins, I don't think anyone is asking him to do this much in his career. And I know you're probably watching the Commanders Broncos game. I'm not watching that game, champ. Don't even get me started on that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Um, Bijan Robinson. Hey, what more could you ask? 23 for a buck 42 and a touchdown. Tyler Algier didn't get enough carries. But the problem is, champ, special teams. I mean, that fumble y'all had earlier that set up that touchdown, I believe, to Brees Hall. I mean, Tyrod Taylor in that game only threw like 33 times, only 19 attempts, one touchdown, only sacked twice. Um, Jamal, I mean, I don't know what's going on in Atlanta. We already know what's up. They need to fire Raheem Morris. They need to fire Zach Robinson. They need to completely clean up this coaching staff outside of Jeff Aldrich. You still want Jeff Aldrich to remain on this team. You're about a day away from 2026 champ. How to explain this? Kind of like with your sneaky link.
Uh, I don't know what to say anymore. It's like you're kind of numb to it at this point. Kind of numb to it before. Like you said, man, it's like sneaky, not like being in a relationship with your sneaky link. The excitement is there, but you know the letdown is on the way. It's just unfortunate. This season is one of the most disappointing seasons probably in the history of the franchise because we have the talent. You have the talent. The talent is there. Talent's there. Coach is not there. Bijan, great. Drake London, top 10. You have good offensive line. You have great defense for the most part on paper. But um, I don't know what to say about this team anymore, man. It's just the letdown is always there, and there's a lot to be desired. This is why, like I stated, if we did not have the talent and you knew that this was a bad team, I could pretty much understand the drop off. But for us to go from sugar from crap to crap, from mud to maggots, it, it's it's a lot to be desired. And like I said, I don't mean to be repetitive and regurgitate the same information, but we have the talent. That's what bothers me. It's kind of like you going to school and failing a test and you studied all night for it, but you make it F. I studied all night for this test. I prepared. I put everything in place. I slept. I didn't stay up all night playing Madden or 2K. I took my behind to bed. But instead of, you know, it's like a popcorn fart in church. So that's just what it is. Very, very disappointing. And it has to hurt the fan base to look. Carolina Panthers have caught up with us and surpassed us.
They
They've
swept
caught
y'all
up with
this
us.
season. First time since 2013. They swept y'all.
Exactly. They're in playoff contention for the first time since Cam. They've caught us and passed us. Tampa Bay Bucks. So, hey. Uh Arthur Blank, Rich McKay, y'all got a lot of rearranging to do, and the worst is yet to come because they may very well be drafting Matthew Stafford's heir apparent next year in Los Angeles because we may end up with a top 10 pick. So, and that top 10 pick could be going right out there to Los Angeles. They could be drafting his heir apparent next year. So now we got to deal with it. So now the NFL got to deal with another 10 years of Sean McVay and another great quarterback at his disposal. But it's at this point, it's to be expected. It's like I don't watch the games with the same excitement anymore. I'm like, you know what? Hey, if you guys win, good job. If you guys win, good job. That just puts the Rams in a worse position in the draft board. If you guys lose, so be it. But there's got to be a lot of changes. We haven't made the playoffs going on 10 years. So, hey, forever I love Atlanta, man, but the game don't love nobody.
Champ, do you think they should probably look at getting a quarterback? Because I have major concerns about Michael Penix Jr.'s durability history.
Absolutely. I think they should look at Mac Jones. I really do.
Right,
I
because the
don't
reason
really
why. Go ahead.
I don't really think that look, I don't think you should take any chances at this point. Right now, you have a franchise that's hungry for a winner. Michael Penix Jr. has been hurt. Um, and when he's out there, let's just call a spade a spade. There's a lot to be desired. There's much to be desired when he's out there. So you got to look at the Mac Jones, see if you can bring him in.
Definitely not Kyler.
Definitely not Kyler. I don't. I
Because,
don't think.
because again, and the only reason why I bring it up because in the past I did mention about bringing Kyler to Atlanta, but you said no because of the cap hell situation. And if you can't study in a place like Arizona, what the hell makes you think you can study in Atlanta? And plus, who knows if the Jets can't find a quarterback in this year's draft? Okay, I understand Atlanta, but what makes you think you can study in New York, especially with the New York media and the press?
My
They're not
thing.
going to be too kind to Kyler because everyone knows he doesn't have the greatest study habits in the world, after all. But if you're Atlanta champ, why not take a shot on Mac Jones? You're gonna have to pay him a little bit more money, but Mac Jones, I hope they get a really good offensive mind. You got to get rid of Zach Robinson,
Yeah.
but you give him some weapons, and you don't have to ask him to do as much. Because you know Mac Jones right now at this point is a lesser version of Kirk Cousins. He's not mobile like Kirk Cousins, but he doesn't have to be pretty. He can be good. I've said it before with Mac Jones, champ. He should have been drafted with the third overall pick for the San Francisco 49ers as opposed to Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
And before Brock Purdy came back in, Mac Jones did a very solid job for this team.
Yes,
So
indeed.
my think if you're Atlanta, you've had Michael Penix Jr. He still struggles with durability issues. You struggled with Marcus Mariota. You struggled with Taylor Heineke. Can I interest you in Desmond Ritter, who you have often said in the past he couldn't pass gas even if you fed him refried beans? So if I'm Atlanta, I need competency. And I think Mac Jones is a competent quarterback. So to pair him up with an offense, as long as I give him a good enough offensive mind, because after all, he was subjected to Matt Patricia and Joe Judge in New England. And if you're Atlanta and if you put him with a crappy offensive mind, regardless of how much talent you have, you just setting yourself up for failure. It's kind of like having all these great ingredients and you fucking up the meal. So if you Atlanta, you don't want to mess up on that. I mean, it's kind of like you going to Magic City. You trying to have a good time. You expecting good wings, and then they fuck up the meal for you. You don't want that. So my thing
Well,
is, Atlanta, you may have to try to get Mac Jones or some other veteran out there.
even if it is for a 1 year deal, go out there and get him. And if he proves his weight, go ahead. Mac Jones is still relatively young.
27 years old.
Yes. So, oh, like I stated, I don't look. If I'm that front office, I don't take any chances. If I'm that front office, I just don't take any chances. And if I know there's a possibility of me losing Michael Penix Jr. for the rest of next season as well, considering all the injury history, I could very well have another Teddy Bridgewater on my hands. So I'm not taking any chances. Mac Jones, I'll sign you to a 1 year deal, 25 mil. You prove it from there, we'll go from there. And plus, over $30 million gets freed up once we release Kirk Cousins. I don't want to bring him back. You saw how detrimental that has been. So, uh, when I talk about the Falcons, I don't talk about them with the same as excitement as as I thought I was going. That's how come I didn't get caught up in the hype at the beginning of the season. We're Super Bowl contenders because we can go from the Super Bowl to the salad bowl to the toilet bowl.
Well, you have often said that the Cleveland Browns are the South.
So
You said that the Cleveland Browns are the South. I said they're kind of like the Dallas Cowboys of the Southeast, except even though Dallas Cowboys are history, I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys now, champ.
yeah, it's sad, man. So
Major
much promise,
disappointment.
so much, so much promise, all that talent. Bijan, one of the best backs we've had since Michael Turner. Drake London,
And a better talent than Michael Turner, obviously.
yeah,
Michael Turner was a very good running back. He was physical, but he didn't have that type of speed like Bijan. And
no,
he can run, and you couldn't line him up in wide receiver like Bijan.
no, he couldn't. He was a pounder. No
So
pun
my
intended.
thing is, champ, you have to clean up house with this coaching staff, and you're just gonna have to find somebody. I don't know who, but it's gonna have to be maybe an offensive mind, but it can't just be somebody who has a good relationship with the QB. I mean, it's nice to have a good relationship with the QB, but you need to have a guy who's a leader.
You got to have something. Uh, I, I I
I know
don't
we've
have an
been regurgitating. I know I don't want to.
I don't have an answer for him because the thing is, Atlanta is just going to Atlanta, and I don't have an answer anymore. Like I stated, with this talent, the talent, it's it's sickening, and you know it's sickening. And considering the fact that Dallas Turner is having a great season up there in Minnesota, he's having a pretty good season. So
And again, you advocated for Dallas
for
Turner,
Dallas Turner, I
but
advocated for
but
Dallas Turner.
and in fairness to BRF, they're like, no, we already got the cornerstones in Walker and
Yeah, we got
Pierce.
Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner was one of my picks that I wanted because he imagined Jalen Walker and Dallas Turner on this defense and James Pierce on this tournament. Right
Y-
now, let me go to the stats real quick. That's what I'm trying to look at this point, but my electronics won't cooperate sometimes. But
But isn't
Dallas Turner,
Atlanta right up there with sacks?
say again, yeah,
Isn't Atlanta right up there
yeah.
with sacks?
We're
So
second in the
imagine if
league.
you put in Dallas Turner into the mix. I understand that, champ. But the thing is, you had the eighth overall pick. You could have drafted Michael Penix Jr. perhaps day 2 or day 3, but you took him with the eighth overall pick, knowing that he had durability issues. Despite his talent coming out of Washington and other places, he had durability issues, champ. And now this is like his third time with the knee injury.
Yep. I don't know what to say about this franchise, man. I don't know anymore.
That's
And
why you've often said, hey, Matt Ryan, put him in the Ring of Honor. And BRF has often said, as well as you, that you know what? We took Matt Ryan for granted. We didn't
well,
give Matt Ryan enough love and much appreciation, especially the fact he was for that organization, what, 13, 14 years. At least he
Yeah.
got us to a Super Bowl, even though people will always bring up 28-3. But he brought excellence to the city of Atlanta. Helped us move on in the aftermath of the Michael Vick situation in 2007. Was a pillar to the community. Used to go to Braves games. Used to be around Atlanta. And look where we are right now.
Yeah. Bad karma. That's what happened when you're unappreciated. And when you don't appreciate angels, when you don't appreciate angels in your city, the demons come right in.
Well, another person's trash is another person's treasure.
Yeah. Atlanta, man, disappointing.
Say disappoint. No, disappointing would be an understatement, champ. It's just shame, shameful. But champ, let's talk about the Texans and the Colts. Um, prior to the game, Daniel Jones. Remember, it was reported he was playing with a fractured fibula.
Mm.
Um, I don't understand, champ, for the life of me. Why is he attempting more passes than Jonathan Taylor's running the football more? Jonathan Taylor had 21 carries for 85 yards. Did I not say, just like you've often said with Buffalo, let James cook, let JT cook? And you didn't do that. And with this, look, Nico Collins on the offensive side of the Houston Texans played well, 5 for 98 yards. CJ Stroud, it was his first game back from the concussion injury. Outside of the interception, he looked solid. He looked okay. D'Amico Ryans, still one of the best defensive minds in the NFL, alongside with that defense coordinator of Houston. Houston is a team to look at come postseason time, and I still believe they have a good chance of winning the division, especially with that defense, and hopefully if CJ starts turning it around. But the Colts, I am concerned now, champ, because with Daniel Jones and this fractured fibula, you could have just ran the ball more with Jonathan Taylor.
I don't understand some of these teams. I don't. It's weird. People knock the Philadelphia Eagles. I say learn from them. Keep running it.
Well, not this Philadelphia Eagles team right now as we speak, because they're trying to throw the football more, which that's a story for another day.
And that's why they're losing.
Hmm.
So that's the thing. Run it. Run it. Run it. JT was your bread and butter at the beginning of the season. Now teams are now you're in danger. What's so funny about this is that the Colts are in danger of being caught by not only the Houston Texans but by the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're only one game. Those two teams are only one game behind them.
Jacksonville's eight
And
and
the
four,
Colts
Houston 7-5. Same
and
with the
the
Colts.
Colts are right now. They're on fraud alert. You went from being the undisputed number one seed to now being on fraud alert.
And now Sauce Gardner, who you acquired in a trade, had to leave the game due to a calf injury.
Yeah, he's not going to be back for a minute because you don't want to risk, especially a cornerback. You don't want to risk him getting his Achilles hurt. Fraud alert! Run the ball. Run the ball. Run it. Run it into the teeth of that defense. James Cook got 116 yards on that defense last week. He only had 16 carries. Keep running it.
17.
17, excuse me. Thank you for correcting. Keep running it. That's your bread and butter. That's your MVP candidate. I don't care how ugly a win is, it's still a win. Stop trying to make this. And the thing is, why are you trying to make Daniel Jones throw the ball more? You know he has a fractured tibia, fractured fibula. Why? That is,
Idiotic.
to be kind, redundant, I would say. So I don't know what's up with a lot of NFL teams, man. Y'all went from being the number one seed to now you're in danger of getting caught by Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud. And CJ Stroud and that team started 3-5. They've won 4 straight. You're on the verge of a collapse at this point. And your starting quarterback, he's hurt. And man, I don't know what to say about some of these teams, man. It's just like they go out there and they shoot themselves in the foot. Now, why would you keep throwing the ball with Daniel Jones knowing that he has that fracture? Are you trying to get him hurt? Because then you got to put in Anthony Richardson. Do you trust him throughout the playoffs?
But what
No.
you could have done, champ, with Anthony Richardson in that game, you could have run with him and Jonathan Taylor. That way you could fool the defense, and that way, ball control. But they don't want to do that because apparently to them, it's just not. It's just not style football. It's lame.
Don't be pretty. Be
Don't be
good.
pretty. Don't be, but be good. I mean, look at the Eagles right now, champ. They heavily relying on force feeding AJ Brown the football, and they're not 0-2. But you haven't heard AJ Brown complaining about losing, but he's still content about getting his numbers and his targets.
Hey,
And if
man.
you're concerned about that, if you're concerned about how to win, then that should tell you all you need to know. It's disappointing, and this is on Shane Steichen because we've given him a lot of credit. How's his Coach of the Year status looking so far?
Nasty. You may even lose it to D'Amico Ryans because of this turnaround that he did in the middle of the season. It's sad, man. I don't understand why. If you see something working, work it. Put the game down, flip it, and reverse it. So, I you see so many teams that every time you see something working, this is working for you. Jonathan Taylor was an MVP candidate because you kept feeding him. Feed him. 23 carries, guess what? If you got to give him 30, so be it. Keep running him in the teeth of that defense because you don't want those pass rushers to get to your quarterback and injure him even more.
I think you need to be more of an advocate not only for offensive lineman, champ, but you also need to be an advocate for running backs. You're probably going to have to go to court, wear your suit and tie and all that stuff and say, hand the running back the ball. Hand the running back the ball. Hand the running back the ball.
Football.
Because if
It's
I'm not
weird.
feeding my running back, knowing that he is a high caliber running back, and knowing that my quarterback has a fractured fibula who should not have any business of playing in that game, what the hell am I doing?
These teams and some of these coaching decisions are weird. And how ironic it's the offensive coaches that are making these dumb decisions. Kevin Stefanski, Shane Steichen, Zach Robinson. Offensive minded coaches making dumb decisions.
And with talent.
I throw up my hands. The case rests, Your Honor. I don't know what to say. Keep feeding him. I understand that defense may be stopping him. Keep feeding him. He gonna break eventually. You keep running him into the teeth of that defense. Eventually, they're gonna get tired. So
Let's talk about finally something that, and I'll give you tremendous credit on this, champ, because they had to be watching our pod or watching some of those videos. They let James cook, referring to the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers 26-7. Josh Allen only had one turnover. That was the interception. I didn't even really watch a lot of that game, champ, but I just knew it was 16-7 at one point. Okay, I knew that Aaron Rodgers was dealing with injuries prior to the game, the wrist injuries. I think wrist fractures.
yeah, wrist fracture.
But if there was any way that they were up, Buffalo, they would have to milk the clock. Ball control. Let James Cook. It's just that simple. And in that game, James Cook, 32 carries, 144 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. Ray Davis, 9 for 62. Josh Allen, 8 carries, 38 yards. Todd Johnson didn't have much running the football. Do you know this is the most yards they've given up the Steelers in that stadium? 249 yards. 249 yards, and Josh Allen only threw the ball 23 times. Meanwhile, collectively, the Bills carried it for 51 times.
Mm.
That's the way to win it. If you're having struggles on the offensive side of the football, stop trying to force feed the ball. Go with a style that works. Is it exciting or flashy? No. But it works. It's like with basketball. It's like I know that the opponent has the worst free throw shooter. So guess what?
Hack a Shack.
Damn the fans. Damn the commissioner and everybody else. I'm trying to win. And even if I have to do it in ugly fashion, so be it. Why is it so damn complicated? I mean, it's kind of like
Avril Lavigne.
it's kind of like to them, it's like rocket science.
Avril Lavigne said it best. Why you got to go and make things so complicated?
Only good exciting thing on the offensive side of the Steelers was Big Darnell Washington, who is
From
now
UGA.
311 pounds. Because nobody doesn't want to tackle a tight end with that type of size. I don't think we've ever heard of a tight end with that type of size at 6'7", 311. Aaron Rodgers didn't play particularly well. You couldn't get much from the Steelers as far as running. Collectively, 18 carries for 58 yards, 3.5 yards a carry. I mean, if you're Baltimore coming off that tough loss Thursday night against the Cincinnati Bengals, perhaps you can have a little bit of breather. But for me, champ, this is something that Buffalo should have been doing a while ago. And the problem is right now, they should be at the top of the AFC East. Right now, it's New England. And the thing is with Buffalo, what are they going to do? Because 1 minute, they're going to try to run the football, and the next minute, they're going to try to ask Josh Allen to be hero ball.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is, I mean, look, champ, you got to give credit to the Bills for finally running the football. You've got to give them credit on that. You got to give credit to the offensive line. Josh Allen, I am concerned about the turnovers. Joe Brady, finally, run the ball more. If you want to try to make a case for being a head coach in the National Football League, this is the perfect way to do it. Because we know for a fact you don't want to be a head coach on the collegiate level. If you want to make a case to be a head coach on the NFL level, sometimes you're going to have to try to do something that you don't want to do. And
Yes,
that
indeed.
perhaps is running the football. I understand people want to see offense and fantasy football numbers and stuff like that. But if I'm a football player, I'm trying to win.
Hey, let James cook, and they did just that. They must have been watching last week when we said it. Let James cook. Y'all did it right. Look, do not ask Josh Allen to be the MVP every single game. You got a running back from running back you that can get the job done. You see what happens when you feed him? Keep feeding him. And then if it's not working, then ask Josh Allen to be MVP Josh Allen. But don't give up on the running game and then ask Josh Allen to be the hero every game. That's just my thing. But I'm glad they let him cook. Hell of a job. Hell of a job. He's proven that he was worth every penny.
Not just that, champ. Yo, I'm surprised you didn't even mention this. Where is he from, James Cook?
Yeah, I said running back UGA.
I didn't hear you say that today. I
Yeah,
just wanted
we
you to
are running.
remind
We
that
have
of
to
that.
say it. We are running back UGA. Every generation, we bought out at least two or three of them. Every generation. It started with the great Herschel Walker, and it went on down the line. So,
There you go. Champ, let's talk about the Vikings versus the Seahawks. Um, We picked the Seahawks to win that game, although Jackson Smith-Njigba didn't go off. He only had 2 catches for 23 yards. But Max Brosmer, the backup quarterback, came in 19 to 30, 126 yards. He was sacked 4 times, but 4 interceptions, champ, and a passer rating of 32.8, and on a scale of 0 to 100, 5.6. And Justin Jefferson, if there was ever a time or a moment, champ, for a wide receiver to be frustrated or displeased, it has to be him. You talked about the discrepancy between him and someone like an A.J. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Because Justin Jefferson has every right to pout and complain, but he knows how that'll come across. Meanwhile, with A.J. Brown, he's on a winning team. They're just fresh off from winning the Super Bowl. They're still in contention to make the playoffs. Even though they've lost 2 consecutive games, they still have a chance to win the NFC East. And he keeps pouting and complaining about not getting his targets in the football. And Kevin Patola, the offensive coordinator, Jalen Hurts is asking him to do an awful lot that he really shouldn't be doing. And I also understand, look, Saquon is not having the type of season like last year. But at the same time, as you've mentioned, as we've mentioned, running backs who've had 2,000-yard seasons, they regress. Shout out to Real Talk with MJ. He's talked about why not getting the ball to Bigsby more. And not only that, their offensive line, they've had issues. So my thing is, if I'm Justin Jefferson, not only I'm not getting my numbers, but I'm also not winning. He could complain all he wants. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, justifiable.
Yes.
And I don't want to hear anything from A.J. Brown. As for Minnesota, I don't know what they should do. I thought, to me, looking back, champ, them trading for Justin Jefferson with the 10th overall pick, I thought he was more of a day 2 or a late first round pick. I thought it was a mistake. And you got questions about his durability, and you have questions about his play. He's athletic, but at the same time, I don't know what's the word. I mean, he just seems too inconsistent.
You mean
And
Jaden McCarthy, right?
JJ McCarthy, I'm referring to.
Okay.
And to your point, champ, Minnesota, they've done their part. They've gotten wide receivers. They're known for producing wide receivers. They're known for producing
Defensive
running
lineman.
defensive linemen. They've had running backs from not just Adrian Peterson. They also had Chester Taylor at one point, Michael Bennett, you know, but they just can't address that QB need.
Hmm.
And I think for Minnesota, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Justin Jefferson already got his money. You already took care of him. So unless if I address the QB need in Washington, in Minnesota, I apologize. If I'm Justin Jefferson, do I demand a trade?
Rightfully so if he does, because look, man, I'm just gonna be real. He went from going 14-3 to having a losing season. A losing season. 14-3, making the playoffs. Losing season. If anybody has the right to complain, it's Justin Jefferson. He's the Myles Garrett of offense at this point. One of the most talented receivers in the world, one of the most talented weapons in the world. And like I said, his fate is similar to Myles Garrett at this point. Super talented, arguably the best wide receiver in the league. Because of quarterback play, not making it too far. It's unfortunate for him and Myles Garrett because 2 talented players that are in such the worst positions in the league ever. And ironically, neither one of those franchises can get the quarterback position right. And it's just unfortunate.
Damn shame. Damn shame, man. I mean, it's just really unfortunate. And what is a damn shame is this game right now that's going on between the Broncos and Commanders, 13-7. I mean, Commanders are in red zone territory. Like I said, if I'm the Commanders, I shut down Jaden Daniels for the remainder of the season. I don't care if he wants to play, champ. He's too valuable to this organization. And look, you did a TikTok video. Is it more about Jaden Daniels or more about the culture of Washington? Because from Doug Williams, Joe Theismann, Robert Griffin III, Jason Campbell, all the quarterbacks. Look, we finally found one in Jaden Daniels, who I believe has potential. Again, I told you my concern was his size.
Mm-hmm.
Never his play, never his talent, was his size. And he's already had 3 injuries this season. Okay, the sprained knee, the hamstring, the dislocated elbow. He had absolutely no business to still be in that game in which they were down by like 31 points against Seattle on Sunday Night Football. They have to go back and go to younger players. They can't constantly rely on older players like Von Miller, who's 36, Bobby Wagner, who's like 35, Zach Ertz, who's 34. They can't just sign 1 year guys. Draft, develop younger players, identify talent. That way you can compel free agents to come play in Washington, which they're about to move into a new stadium, not in Maryland, D.C. Therefore, if you want to attract top-notch guys who are in their prime, that's the way to do that. If you're Josh Harris and Magic Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
season has been a failure and a disappointment. But hopefully we'll move on to better things if I'm Washington. But I do not want to see Jaden Daniels back on that football field again this season. Shut him down. Focus for 2026. Go forward. Get you some help with the defensive line, which is something that they need. They need tight end. They need some help with the whole line and a lot of other things. I'll still keep Dan Quinn as the head coach, but if I continuously see these types of mistakes again, then I'm sorry, I'm pulling the plug.
Man, that sophomore jinx hit them hard. Hit them hard. Hit them like a sledgehammer from Triple H.
Yeah,
Um, Shut them down. I agree with everything you said. Shut them down. Don't You don't have a chance of making the playoffs at this point. You don't have a snowball's chance, and you know where you want to make the playoffs. Shut Jaden Daniels down, keep him on the sideline, and develop a plan for next year. And I will rest on that because that just seems like the most logical decision. Now you got to decide what you want to do. You either want to win or you want to put butts in seats. If you want to win, the wisest thing to do is keep your quarterback on the sideline. If you just want to put butts in seats, guess what? Go ahead and march him on out there. And when he gets hurt, you're going to be looked at just like the previous ownership was. You got to
that's my
understand
concern.
something. Yeah, you gotta understand something. If you're this new regime, you got to be real careful because if they started perceiving that you're not trying to win, they're going to label you just as they did the last regime, and that's something that you don't want. But I agree with you. Shut them down.
Yeah, man. Nothing more, nothing else. And the Commanders, they just scored already. It's 13-13. But we'll see how the rest of the game goes. Also, before we finish up the show, shout out to Audie Crooks. Career high, 47 points on
Yes,
19
indeed.
and 25 shooting. So I like that. Got some good footwork, got some good post presence, got some nice moves and stuff. Shout out to Audie Crooks, man.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and also Chad, you gotta go check out that BYU player.
I'll go check them out.
Yeah, and Cam Boozer, the son of Carlos Boozer.
Yo, yeah, he ain't no joke. I'm a North Carolina guy when it comes to basketball, college basketball, but I can't deny it. He's a straight rider. So, hey, Ness,
The beautiful Ness.
Ness, Ness. My bad.
Loviness, and she did a fantastic. She does a fantastic job as far as with her content. Please go check her out on the Sports for You podcast. She said herself, we finally got a good Sunday night game. I mean, yeah,
It's decent. It's decent.
recent. I
It's
mean, you
decent.
look at the last couple of games that we saw. I mean, it wasn't any better. But
Yeah.
I can't. I gotta admit, champ. I can't wait for the Big Ten championship game, the SEC championship game. We'll do our predictions for Friday night show. Shout out to our guy Dwayne. He says up. Um, I think I have OSU though winning that one. I'm not going to discount them. They had a big win against Michigan. Finally, we can end the narrative that OSU with Ryan O'Day, but they got a big test against Indiana. I think if Fernando Mendoza wants to make his case for the Heisman Trophy,
Win that game.
this, yes, and ball out. But you know what? Let's actually try to keep on with these types of conversations, champ. Speaking of which, what did you think about Alabama versus Auburn in the Iron Bowl game?
I loved it. I love that game. Look, it's a rivalry game. People all look. It's a rivalry game, in-state rivalry game. We didn't do that well against Georgia Tech, but we won. So I love that game, man. You got to see they were knocking the crap out of Ty Simpson. There
Mm-hmm.
were a lot of questionable calls near the end. There were a lot of questionable calls during the end of that game. But as you all know, you cannot leave it in the officials' hands. Few questionable calls, but overall it was a great game, and we got to see what really Ty Simpson was made of outside of that. It's going to be interesting to see what he does against us next weekend because this is not the same Georgia team that they faced earlier in the season. I think it's going to be a great job. Plus we're playing in Atlanta. We got a good record in Atlanta. And it's gonna be interesting to see, man. I can't wait for the rematch, man. And for those of you who are gonna sit around here and say I didn't want to play Alabama, then guess what? I don't like the fact that you're fans. In order to be the best, you got to take out the best. And right now, Alabama's one of the best teams in the SEC. We beat everybody else except Alabama. So guess what? You want to be up there with the elite class, you got to beat Alabama. So that's the hashtag for this week: beat Alabama. So hey, let's see what you got. Bring your best, Bama.
Although I was disappointed though that my Michigan lost to OSU, but I was more than happy with Oklahoma, even though an ugly win. A win is a win against LSU. That was the first time I think since 1950 we
Dang,
beat LSU.
yeah,
And look, my concern has been the offense with John Mateer. He had 3 interceptions in that game. He hasn't played well at all ever since that hand injury, champ. But our defense, this
yeah.
is
I
what I
love
love
that.
for Brett Venables, man, and that's going to be no joke if any team faces Oklahoma. But I am kind of concerned with the offense though, because if our defense is not going, and if our offense looks like this,
This is so unconventional because I'm not used to seeing this Oklahoma team. Right?
you're
I'm used
used
to
to high-powered
I'm
offenses
used to
under the
seeing
days
them
of Bob
score
Stoops
within 60
and
seconds.
Lincoln Riley. Yeah,
I'm used even without Lincoln Riley, even when Bob Stoops was the coach, I was used to seeing them like lasers. But it's just been weird. It's like Oklahoma with a defensive struggle. Oh man, it's crazy. But I love that defense, man. That defense is great. They came out there and they did their job, and when it was time to perform, John Mattia and that offense performed. So hey, I'm loving what I'm seeing. OU Boomer Sooner. Shout out to my main man Calvin, because he like the damn near had a heart attack this past Saturday. So that was one of those heart attack games without all the high scoring. But I like what I saw in that defense, man. That defense, it'll knock your socks off watching
hmm it's interesting, champ. I'm reading an article right here regarding Lane Kiffin. Now that he's with LSU, he will coach his daughter's boyfriend at LSU. Did you hear that story?
them. Yeah, I heard about this story, but I That's one of them housewives type of stories. I don't know.
Kardashian type of story.
It's kind of like one of those housewives drama type of stories. I don't know how that's gonna. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, man. It is kind of weird.
It's kind of weird because people gonna start asking. I don't know if he's starting at this point. I don't know, but it's kind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I said, I don't know if he's starting at this point, but get ready for the jokes. You know, get ready for the jokes.
And on that note, we're gonna end off the Sports PSP podcast. Um, Big fella, any final words before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, get ready to go back to work tomorrow because y'all know it's on. Monday after a holiday is always a Jet 2 holiday, so it's it's gonna
Fortunately for me,
be.
I ain't got work tomorrow.
Oh man, you like the luckiest little something, aren't you? But but
I work my ass off every single day. If anybody deserves a break, I do.
yes, indeed, I will give you that. The hardest working man in podcast business, the Tom Joyner of podcasting. Man, I already know it's gonna be rough tomorrow when I go to work. Like I stated, as y'all know, I work in the technology business, and everybody. You come back on Monday, there's something wrong with everybody's stuff. So it's gonna be interesting tomorrow. I got my mind prepared for tomorrow.
All right. One last thing before I wrap up the show. Let me give Dwayne this notice. He said, "Champ, some YouTubers say the craziest thing. I heard one YouTuber talking about Shadour Sanders is not talented enough." Um,
It's click. I always say, look, ignore clickbait. People often say stuff in order to kind of get a rise out of you, and it doesn't. It's clickbait.
it's
It's
Rex
it's
Ryan.
it's
I'm sorry,
raised
Champ.
bait.
No, Champ. You have to look so bad for Emmanuel Acho of all people to call you out.
I mean, look. I'm gonna just be real. Is Emmanuel Acho really that bad? I mean, I'm just being real. Is he that bad?
He ain't
Outside,
Jason
look,
Whit. No, he ain't Jason
outside
Whitlock. I'll give you that.
again. The only thing that we know he did, anybody else would have did.
I know
So,
you would.
so I'm just being real. Hey, in a New York minute, it take my Texas time doing it. So let's just. I'm just being real. In a New York
May
minute,
God
it take
have mercy. May the Lord have mercy on your soul.
so yeah. Like I said, what
You
did he
about to
do?
go to work on Monday, and now you're gonna start us in crazy bleep.
I'm just being real. People talk about, oh man, Emmanuel Acho. Look, this guy's a New York bestseller. He's been on the Good Morning America. Outside of his name being involved in a scandal, that if you ask me, if that's the only scandal I'm gonna be involved in for the rest of my life, and everybody know it's true, and then LaShawn McCoy even brought it up and kind of admitted that was what was going on. If that's the only thing that my name is involved with after all this stuff, I did pretty good in life. And like I said, in that scandal, I didn't do anything that anybody else would have did twice on Sunday and 3, 4 times on Monday and Friday. So what did I really do at this point?
You could have just taken the Bill Clinton approach.
Well, no, I can't do that. So I mean, if you really think about it, he really did. If you if you think about it, he took the '94 Bill Clinton approach, not necessarily the 2025 Bill Clinton approach.
There you go, right
95.
there. There you go, right there.
I'm just saying.
I think Dwayne, look, YouTubers are gonna say the craziest things about Shador Sanders. I just think, look, he may not be their type of guy or bravado or stuff, or as Colin Cowherd said in the past about Baker Mayfield, I want guys who are quarterback heel. I just think, look, I would love to see Shador Sanders in different circumstances. I would like to see him with a team with a good offensive mind and some good pieces, so that way we could better evaluate Shador Sanders. Kevin Stefanski right now, to me, it just seems like he wants out of Cleveland. Or to Champ's point, They're just tanking. That's what it appears to me. But one last thing before we wrap up the show, I will say this though. Look, man, we're about a day away from the 1st of December. 24 days until Christmas. Holiday season. I know it's pretty hectic and I know it's pretty tough, especially with the cold weather, especially with a lot of things that's going on. My thing is take time to yourself. Try to be with family if you can. I understand during this time, it's not the holiday season is no joke. It's really frustrating um because of a lot of things with family and everything else. But still at the end of the day, just be kind to one another. In the words of the late great Robin Williams, everyone you meet in life is fighting a battle you know nothing about. So be kind always. People, if you have a problem with something, just please talk to someone, get some help. Be around someone that you can trust, be with. Always, the season is about giving, then taking. So make sure you give those who are less fortunate. Make sure you do something with your life, something positive, and also give yourself as well too. You can be cheap to a lot of things, never be cheap to yourself. So on that note, hope everyone enjoys a fantastic day. Um Wish everyone a good day back at work. Even though I may not be working at my job, but still, I'm always working on the Sports PSP pod. I will continuously do whatever I can because we are already, as Champ says, 150,000. And
Yes.
shout out to, as Champ always calls me, when it comes to podcasting, happy birthday or belated birthday to the great time joiner, Fly Jock. There's a reason why they call him Fly Jock because he would fly in the morning to do Dallas weekly radio shows and then to Chi-Town to do afternoon radio shows. You talk about a workaholic. You talk about someone who's been a pioneer to the industry, media industry, radio. You talk about someone who puts their life and time on the line just to do the type of entertainment. Look no further than Tom Joyner, and especially for black people.
The hardest working man in radio. That was not just a mantra. That was in fact true. You fly from Dallas to Chicago, and that ain't even including the traffic. You got your timing in that has to be precise.
Yes.
Your timing on that has to be precise. But for him to do that for that many years, and look, the radio station was our ears. So Tom Joyner, thank you. Tom Joyner, thank you. And you know, we found someone on the podcaster side that's just like you, and that is PSP. And shout out to one person who's no longer with us at this point. Shout out to my main man Ghost, my main man Joe from TikTok. Um, he's a Florida Gator, former Florida Gator. Um, he played for the team back in the day. He lost his battle with cancer early in the week, and those were along with PSP. He was one of my day ones on TikTok. He would send me ideas, much like PSP, and you know, every time I used to wake up in the morning, he used to have on his page some great music. He used to have on his page some great music, and Joe would give me a lot of ideas himself. He would send me a lot of things. I had his number. He would text. He would call, and a lot of different things. So shout out to Ghosty, and shout out to his lovely wife Christina. Um, thank y'all for everything y'all did. Thanks for the encouragement. Thanks for the love. When TikTok went down, I was about to quit everything, but fortunately for everybody, PSP and Ghost wasn't having it. They was not having it. So
We were never
they
going to
said
have that.
they said that no, no. I was really after TikTok went down that first time. That was gonna be my last video. I told Ghost that, and I remember telling you something like I might quit. I'm like, oh wait,
Nah,
and it
you
was
worked too damn
like
hard. I
like
wasn't going to allow you to quit.
it was like Joe and PSP like, oh, like hell you are. But and I think a lot. I thank Ghost and Christina for a lot of things. So um, and I'm glad that last night I think that Florida went over on the Florida State. Uh, so thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it, man. Every morning, you don't let content creators. The impact of content creators isn't necessarily limited to your followers. Sometimes it's the little things that you do. Joe may not have had a lot of followers on his page, but people listened to him and paid attention to what he was saying. He always preached love. He always preached having a good day. He always preached togetherness and all of that. And that was a lot of motivation to see early in the morning. And yeah, man, she used to send me a lot of stories, a lot of the videos, especially in the early days of TikTok. He sent me those videos and said, "I know you're gonna knock this out the park," much like PSP did. Three people that I knew was going to give me ideas, even if I didn't have them on my own. If I got writer's block one day, I knew Joe, I knew my father, and I knew PSP was going to send me some ideas about something, and they knew I was going to knock it out of the park. So Joe, fly high, brother, fly high, man, fly
Well,
high.
well, beautifully said, undisputed world champ. Also, shout out to the wonderful, beautiful D, the lovely D. Every single day I talk to, thank you every single day. Thank you to everyone who's continue to watch the Sports PSP podcast. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like, follow, share, subscribe, and comment. And best believe we ain't gonna stop. We just gonna keep on. Like MC Hammer said, keep on. You just gotta keep on. And on that note, we gonna end off the show. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day.